Hello, I'm Bernard Hickey from interest.co.nz and welcome to a special economic weather report. We're trying something different today. We're calling it Let's Chew the Fat on farm sales. I'm here with David Cheston, who's the publisher of interest.co.nz and who's responsible for all these fantastic charts that we have on interest.co.nz. And he's been following closely the farm sales data for the last umpteen years. And we've got fresh figures out for May. So the fat here to chew over is weak farm sales for May as registered by the REINZ. We had 118 farms sold in May, and for the last 3 months there's been 319 farms sold. Now, to give you an idea of how weak that is, 2 years ago there were over 700 farms sold, and we're now down 57% in the value of farms. The median price is down 44%. Now, when you actually look at what this is doing to the regional economy, there's about $330 million worth of farms being bought and sold in the last 3 months or so. 2 years ago, that number being pumped into the rural economy was $1.4 billion. But there's a few caveats to be careful about around these numbers. And I just wanted to bring in David and ask about these REINZ numbers. What are the things to watch for with these REINZ farm sales numbers?
Well, I think the big thing is how far they've fallen. They're down, in some sectors, down to a third, two-thirds fall, down a half or two-thirds. And it's a huge fall. And there's something inhibiting the sales. And it's definitely not the revenue that farmers make off their farms. The farm prices at the moment are at record highs. Our commodities overseas are in great demand.
And we've seen with the MAF Outlook report out in the last couple of days, which you can also see on our site, that we're seeing very strong prices forecast, at least for the next couple of years. So it seems strange that farm prices aren't jumping ahead.
Yes, well, I think there's a whole new way that the people who provide the credit, the banks, are looking at these things. In the past, the credit was provided based on the land value. But the land value is way too high for the earnings that you can earn on these enterprises. And so the banks are having a reassessment of all that. So even though prices are up, they're nowhere near high enough levels to justify the commercial returns on that land.
And that's interesting. The REINZ is saying today that it's the bank's fault that there hasn't been the money lent. And when you look at the figures, and we collect these figures on our site as well, and you can see this chart here. This is a chart of agricultural credit, and we'll just run it over the top of us for a few minutes, looking at what's happened to agricultural credit in the last 4 or 5 years. And you can see that it's been bubbling along at more than 10% growth for the last 5 or 6 years. But around the end of 2007, early 2008, there was a surge in lending into farms. And we saw that with lending, particularly to the dairy sector. Now, to give you an idea of how much lending there was in that period, particularly in early 2008, in the 3 months to May 2008, we saw an extra $3 billion in credit advanced to the agricultural sector, compared to now just $33 million. So we've gone from $3.2 billion injected into the farming sector in those 3 months to May 2008 to just $33 million injected now. But the question is it an issue of demand or supply? David, what do you think?
Well, I think it's business fundamentals. This whole sector went through the big bubble you saw on the chart, and it has to deleverage. Without that, it becomes unsustainable, really. And so the banks, and I think on the demand side, farmers are realising that these enterprises need to earn a decent return based on their investment. And you just can't wait till you become 55 to 60 and retire and sell it off to some other greater fall. The greater fall theory here is getting exposed.
And that's the interesting thing. When we speak to bankers, all the rural bankers we've spoken to, they say it's not so much a supply thing. It's not the bank saying, no, we won't lend. It's the people who are actually buying the farms who are saying, well, it doesn't make sense to buy at these levels, exactly. And farm prices have to fall. So there we have it, a special economic weather report, what we call it Chewing the Fat, here with David Cheston, the publisher of interest.co.nz. Give us a yell on what you think of this slightly different format on doing these videos. I'm Bernard Hickey. That was a special economic weather report brought to you in association with the BNZ.